Party with your host, Dustin Rybka.
Hello and welcome to Sex Party. I'm your host, Dustin Rybka. This is episode 51. My guest this week, Brianna Dachisen. Brianna is a licensed therapist. She's the co-host of the Ditch the Script podcast. We talk about a ton of stuff in this episode. Listen, some of the best relationship hacks we've ever had on Sex Party are in this episode. We talk about toxic relationship behaviors on reality TV. We talk about being passive aggressive, being with a partner that's passive aggressive, and what a fucking headache that is. And some of the things you can do to maybe not deal with it, not do it yourself, right? Relationship check-ins. How do you make them more fun, and why does it involve a pirate costume? There is an incredible dating hack, relationship hack, dealing with compatibility. It's a game changer. How do you ask for the sex that you want? And what is a tiny, tiny little white lie that you can tell to get some of the best sex of your life? All that and more. Let's get to it without further ado. This is my conversation with Brianna Dachisen.
This week's conversation.
Brianna Dachisen, welcome to Sex Party. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. We talked a little bit offline or online. I don't know however we're saying that. We talked a little bit on Instagram about some great topics. I think the audience member has their popcorn, hopefully, and their vodka at this point. They know the drill. It's Sex Party.
I love that.
Gotta have a Tito's and soda at 9 a.m.
I get it. It's a literal party.
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful.
Yeah. People underestimate the amount of popcorn and alcohol that should be at a sex party. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I would have never assumed that those would go together, but I can see how they'd factor in.
Yeah, you got to have the saltiness and then just the vodka-ness. I don't know.
You just have to refuel.
Yeah.
It's just important to keep yourself satiated and fueled.
Yeah, for sure. So for the audience, right, who may not know you, they may not have ever heard your voice before, ever seen you. Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Brianna. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm also the co-host of Ditch the Script podcast with my friend and your friend, Alex Scott. And so if you haven't heard my voice before, I'm not surprised. My Instagram is still very my own personal home base and not used for work in any way, shape, or form, which I like. And I think I intend to keep it that way. And if you have heard my voice and you're familiar with the podcast, what we do is we break down popular dating reality television and we make sense of it from two professional lenses to sort of call out what we can tell is being normalized in dating patterns and behaviors that we really think should not be normalized as a group, a culture.
Yeah. So the toxic shit.
Yeah, really. And some of it's obvious, right? You watch some stuff and you're like, that's obviously toxic and they're creating a storyline around it. And then there's some hidden gems that Alex and I were like, no, the way that the audience is responding to this, online after these shows air, we're like, no. You guys, we got this wrong. This is not something that we should be celebrating or not something that we should be condemning either. So we love it.
Yeah. I mean, I think people, for as much as we know how manufactured the Kardashians is, right? There's still, I would say, like you said, nuggets or gems that it's oh shit, that's true. That is real reality television, Yeah. And so I think that's what's great about your guys' podcast. We love Alex. So when you guys get together and do a show, is it what reality TV are we talking about? Is it every show? Is it one or two?
We cover one show and it's primetime season at a time. So we had just recently wrapped up the Bachelor in Paradise season. We started with a Bachelor series. And then right now we're on Love is Blind season 3. We kind of want to tackle where people are watching as it is, because there's usually a lot of buzz about it and a lot of people have a lot of opinions. And I kind of love the way that even streamable reality dating television shows sort of bring friend groups together or random people together, coworkers together. We're like, did you watch this? Could you believe that this dude was like fake crying? And I love that. And so we just want to participate in that conversation and sort of be on top of those conversations as they're happening in people's regular everyday lives.
Yeah. I wonder right off the bat, right? Like how much of your licensed therapist brain are you using to talk about reality TV and dating?
A lot of it. And I think what I want to achieve, what I hope that we achieve is like, we make comments and suggestions about what the casts of these shows could be doing differently to provide like an actual healthier connection. Because yes, people go on these shows because they want their, entrepreneurship booming and they want to like gain followers and they are very comfortable with being portrayed as a character, but also people go on there to find connections and find love. And I think that that's also what draws us to these shows. So what I really want to achieve is being able to make sense of how could we take what we're seeing and apply it in our real lives, in our dating experiences, in our actual relationships, even if they are longer term relationships. And so my therapist brain is always sort of like, if these people were clients of mine, how might I be giving them feedback? What would I be recommending them to do? Our show doesn't really flow that way, but you can definitely tell that it comes through in both Alex's lens and my lens as we come together.
Totally. Is there an item or are there items, right, that are maybe like toxic as fuck that you see like all the time on reality TV that you see that then in like real life? Like what are some of the behaviors you're like, oh my God, this is what so-and-so did to or whatever, but like also in real life?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'd say emotional reactivity and zero conflict management. In addition to that, like very passive aggressive, this is how I feel. I'm expecting my partner to know what I'm feeling and how to fix it, but very few skills or very few real examples of people coming to their partner or the person that they're dating and being like, hey, this is how this made me feel. This is what that was like for me. And a lot of us just don't have the tools to initiate those difficult conversations. And we are way more familiar with blowing up, screaming, having like a really, really explosive emotional reaction to feeling like someone hurt us. And it makes sense why we do that. We're human beings, we're animals. Our feelings around these moments are valid. It's just not it's not an effective way to actually make it work with your partner. And if that's the goal while you're in relationship with one another, then you're never going to fucking get there. You're going to be miserable.
Yeah, I mean, the passive aggressive piece is really interesting to me just because I think we all do it, myself included, and it's almost like an automatic thing. I fucking hate passive aggressive people. Let me just go on record. I just hate it. I had a stepfather who was incredibly passive aggressive, right? Like we'd be talking to my mom or something in the living room and he would just like come in and like bang dishes and throw things and just be loud, right? And like, oh, what's wrong? And he'd be like, oh, why would you think something's wrong? Bang, and, and whatever. So I grew up with it and I've been in relationships where it's like, I'm not mad as they, throw your belongings out into the street or whatever, that sort of thing. And then I've done it, but I sort of slip into it automatically and I catch myself now trying to be a better human, hosting a sex and relationship show will do that to you.
Sure.
And so I'm like, oh, fuck, like here I go again. I'm being, but it's like, it's almost like it beckons you, come to me, be passive aggressive. So why are we doing that? Right. And also like, how can we stop that shit?
You named it. It's like, it's that modeling, seeing it in your family and for you it being your stepdad, like we are programmed to really recreate the behavior that we see in the people that are around us while our brains are soaking in all of that information. And so it just seems to make sense to us, because you don't realize that that's not an effective way of being in a relationship or being in a safe household until you leave and you're like, or someone points it out to you in your relationship and they're like, hey, you're throwing shit around, but you're not telling me how you feel. Like, what's up with that? And you don't realize that stuff. So I think we have to give ourselves a lot of grace and permission to just know that that is where that comes from. And it's normal and natural that we pick up those patterns, even if they're maladaptive and they're not helping us get to where we want to be with our partners or like romantic or even sex life. How do we break it? We have to talk about it. First of all, we have to do a little bit about what you're doing, which is like having some humility to be able to bring some self-awareness and say, this is a thing that I recognize I participate in sometimes. I know that I do it. And I also know that it's a problem.
Yeah.
You know? Are you
totally?
Are you in a relationship right now?
I am. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does this ever come up when like the two of you are like navigating conflict, even like the little shit?
Yeah, you know what's crazy is she's a relationship coach, right? So I kind of like got the cheat code a little bit, which is great. Which I need a fucking cheat code because I was terrible at relationships, and it's nice to have a professional who's also your significant other. And the thing is it's a new relationship, right? But there have been moments where I see myself or feel myself slipping into being passive aggressive, and I'm like desperately trying to fight it, like, no, like a horror movie, just trying to not go there. And before I even realize like what my next move is, she's like, hey, is everything okay? Because I feel like, and I'm like, yeah, well, wait a minute, how did you know that? And so we kind of like come to it before it becomes a thing. But in a relationship where I'm not dating, a professional,
True.
which is all of my other relationships, right? And it's not their fault. It's just whatever. But then then you both get passive aggressive, and there's a thing, and you fall into what I like to call the cycle, which is the hour and a half of nothing's wrong, and then hey, it's just, and then there's a half hour of that, and then more passive aggressive, and then the fight, and then the makeup, and then the cycle starts over.
Yeah. I love that you shared that. It's so true. And it's really common. Like I want to normalize that this is a really frequent cycle that we all play into. It's not the most effective. It's not the healthiest. I don't want to normalize and say like, yeah, don't do anything about it. It's no problem. But like, it is something that we do, and we can help it. I find that passive aggression, just specifically, is sort of born out of this fear of wanting to actually initiate conflict. You're a human being, you're having a feeling, you're upset about something. You can't always help how that shows up physically for you. But we're not often comfortable going to our family members or our partners and saying, hey, I'm really upset. So what do we do instead? We kick stuff around, we huff and puff, and it's this natural way of being able to express, I'm not feeling good. And what we tend to lean on is we hope that the people around us are going to notice. I think why that can be a problem is that we are oftentimes expecting our partners to always be observing that behavior as the only fair indicator that something's up with my person. It's just not fair, So I think getting to a place where it's great to be able to like observe that in each other and really get familiar with, okay, I can tell that you're feeling some type of way. What's going on? Like, I'm facilitating that check-in like your girlfriend does. And I think that what the next step would be working towards is like practicing getting to a place where you start to recognize for yourself, I don't feel great. Something's going on for me. And then giving yourself a moment to step over that scary line of being like, hey, I'm upset, And then usually what we hope happens is if the person who's typically passive aggressive gets to a place where they're like, okay, I'm going to try not to do that. I'm going to recognize for myself that I'm upset. I'm going to tell my partner that I'm upset. If that partner meets us with like, hey, okay, let's talk about it, we can start to really break that pattern, because we're now met with an outcome that is way less scary, feels way more effective. And now your partner feels like there's some sharing of the load in that.
Yeah, because I think that's probably, and again, I'm not an expert like yourself, and I would never claim to be, but in my experience, just life experience and experience with the show, I think that is probably the most common symptom of something not quite right in a relationship, is this constant passive aggressive bullshit. And I think a lot of relationships would probably last a little longer, at least a couple, I don't know, 3 more months, 6 more months, a year, if we had a better way of dealing with the passive aggressive shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you gave that tip to kind of like, okay, let's talk about why I'm feeling this way, which is hard for everyone usually. Yeah, it is hard. But again, like I think when you look at relationships, and stop me wherever I'm wrong, because I'm just a podcast host. Again, gotta have those disclaimers, people. I think, in your typical relationship, there isn't like, I mean, again, it depends on the partners and the people in it. But I think what I've seen is there tends to be just a couple of little tweaks that you could make potentially, not for the perfect relationship, but for more communication, for a better understanding of one another. And I think the passive aggressive thing is one of them. What maybe like the other one would be, this bothers me when you do this a little bit, like just the little things. Cause I feel like the little things then like creep into it's always, the death by 1,000 cuts kind of thing, right?
You're so right about that. And it builds that resentment, especially when it never gets truly dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
It's so true. I think that creating an opportunity to facilitate relationship check-ins can really help fine-tune those little things that get under our skin that we tend to just like sweep away. To spare us of like, I got shit going on. I have a job to do. We have kids. Maybe we take care of other people outside of this household. Like, we all have our stuff. And also we all show up in these relationships totally imperfect. Even if you are a relationship expert or a mental health expert of any kind, you're still going to come into that dynamic flawed and not exactly a perfect fit, even for the person that you really want to be perfect for.
Mm-hmm.
So I recommend this to clients a lot. And it sounds so unsexy, the idea of a relationship check-in, because it sounds like filling out a form at a doctor's office. But I really believe in A, its success, and B, its ability to make it your own as a couple. You can make it interesting. You can make it sexy. You can have it include thoughts that you have about how to improve your sex life together, or just your fun life together, how you go on dates together. And then, of course, obviously the less sexy stuff, how you fight together.
Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering if you said make it sexy, which I was like my next question, which I love. But is there a way to like make it more fun? Like, should we have like theme check-ins where like I show up as a pirate and like you're a maiden or something, just to cut the tension? Or is that like too, I don't know,
No, I would have never thought of that, but I think that there's so much room to play around with that. If you want to show up as characters to make it less weird, or allow the two of you to both be bought into sitting down and being able to be like, this is like, let's just talk about the last week or two. I think is a great way to do it. It doesn't matter what you want to do to get yourselves there. It only matters that both of you desire or see the purpose of checking in. Yeah. So if it's through costumes, or if it's through like, we're going to make dinner together, or we're going to like go to this concert that we're really excited about, like maybe not afterwards, but like the next day, like that was really fun. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about why we had such a good time. And also, were there any fights that happened over the last couple of weeks that we didn't really feel like we got to finish? Like, did you do that thing that you're trying not to do? That's like, whatever. It's a good opportunity to reflect. It's a good opportunity to bring stuff up. But also, I think the reason why it's successful is you're not starting any of these conversations that could be about your fights in the like emotional space of how you feel when you're fighting. When we're fighting, we are like, adrenaline is pumping, nervous system is on fucking fire. And you literally sometimes want to rip each other's heads off. It's not a helpful way to actually get to a different place with the conflicts that happen again and again and again. And I feel like they just are repeats of themselves. So to talk about it when you're more escalated and maybe it's like silly because you're both in different pirate themed costumes, then so be it, because it allows you to talk about it without all of those defenses up that happens typically in conflict.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it was just a fucking dumb Dustin idea, right?
It.
But like, not now I'm like thinking like, well, it would make it a little more difficult to keep a straight face, like while yelling at someone, like, you never take the garbage out and I'm always with the kids. And you're like in full, like pirate, like regalia, crazy shit. So maybe, right. Again, not an expert. This is why we give the disclaimers, because now there's pirate night.
Add that. I'm supportive of it. Like I might bring that into my own life for sure.
Yeah. I think that if you do, I would like you to come back to the show and tell me how it went. Maybe take a selfie, right? And tag the show, that sort of thing. Yeah. Like I would flip out first of all.
I will definitely let you know.
How often should people check in?
I really think like if every week feels like overkill and it feels like it's a recipe for it to become like a chore. It shouldn't feel like a chore, even though it sounds like it could be. Then don't do it every week, but do it every 2 weeks. Don't let a month, 2 months go by. Our memories just aren't that good. They're not that reliable. Life gets in the way. And I think like if every 2 weeks you have an opportunity to, yes, talk about the stuff that doesn't feel super great in your relationship, but it's also an opportunity every 2 weeks to like talk about your plans together and talk about like what kind of dates you want to go on this month or what kind of trips you want to plan. Like these don't necessarily just have to be about like why I fucking hate living with you. It can also be like, I saw this new bar or this new restaurant and I've been dying to go. And I like, it's hard for us because we have late nights and like we got stuff and your mom calls all the time. You know what I mean? Like stuff gets in the way. So often enough that it feels useful and like you feel like you can actually do something with it, but not too frequent that you feel like life is you're just adding another thing to the list.
Right. Yeah. Because that's who the fuck wants to add to your to-do list,
no one does.
Right?
Oh my gosh. And when I talk about it in like therapy with people, they're like, you want me to do what? And I'm like, I promise this doesn't have to be the conversation that you think it is, but like riff on it.
So all of that, right? Gorgeous sort of exposition. Thank you for everything there, right? I feel like sort of sets me up for sort of my doozy question. It's not a thing that we do on the show, but I think that we might have to do every episode. Here's Dustin's doozy question. But is this issue of like compatibility between two people? You and I messaged a little bit about it, right? But I think, and I swear I'm not going to repeat myself if someone's been listening to the show. Like, here we go. They're tuning out right now. But I think people have in the past found partners that are just good enough. They check enough of the boxes and they go right in with the emotions, right? And we talked about how it's hard to stop an argument because your core like desperately wants to win and all these things. Same thing with emotions in a relationship. You meet someone, they're attractive, maybe they're a good dancer, they like the same shows, they make you horny, all these things, and it's like cool, not sure about these, we'll worry about that later. Right. Here come the emotions. Now you're in a relationship with pretty much like a stranger, right? Yeah. So like again, if the check-ins are unsexy, this might sound unsexy too, but you're a therapist and you know the game and whatever, but like, is there a set of things that people should look at compatibility wise with a potential partner? Yeah. And then I have some other mini doozy questions after that.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. Dustin's doozy questions. It also could be Dustin's boozy questions if people do have vodka nearby.
Yeah.
I do think that people could benefit from having a host of things that they feel like they're really looking for out of a partner. But it's also really important for that list to be really short. I think modern dating, 2022, 2023 dating feels a lot like I have the access to what feels like millions and billions of people that I could be dating, but I'm not actually feeling like any of it is working. And I think a lot of times we just chalk it up to like, not my match, not compatible, yada, yada, yada. And in some cases that's true, right? But I think that we are sort of misunderstanding what does it really mean to be not compatible with one another, because what I believe is you can make a relationship work with a lot of different kinds of people, a lot more than I think we narrowly set our sights on. So if you're looking for something, what factors into compatibility is like, what are you actually looking for out of your dating experience? Are you looking to, is it important to you to like have children? Is it important to you to get married? Is it important to you to have like raise children with a specific kind of religion? Those are some big heavy hitters, but it could also be like, it's so important to me that like my partner like wants to go on hikes with me and travel, 3 times out of the year. Some people just aren't going to want to do that, and it's not going to be their thing. That's okay. That would be a good example of not being compatible. If the thing that you really want out of your life, this person that you're dating that may be really great, really cute, great dancer, if they don't want those things and they feel like an on paper perfect match, they're not actually going to be compatible. Because what ends up happening, you get tantalized by the fact that you love the same football teams and you love to spend Sundays the same way, and you're both homebodies, but one of you wants to have kids and they want to do it ASAP, and the other is like, hell no, I've never wanted kids. What ends up happening, either the two of you continue to go down this road, one person sacrifices what they really want, and then resentment builds. It's a perfect recipe for resentment. So this is actually a call to action for people to allow themselves to be surprised by different kinds of people that they're dating. Be familiar with what your values are. Keep that list kind of short and specific, and then go out with people a little bit, see them a little bit longer. I would say, like, for me, my values are, I really want someone that's playful. I want playfulness in my relationships. I want someone who wants to get married, and I want someone who like will help me in my household, like isn't afraid, doesn't think that it's just my job to like, fucking make dinner every night or clean the house every 2 weeks. Like, if you feel like you're comfortable sharing the load with me, if you feel like that you want to get married, you're like okay with commitment, and you like know how to take a joke and you know how to like be playful, we can be very different in all of those other ways.
I love that. Like that's a game changer, what you just said. Like I seriously, because and I'm going to recap it in my little like boiled down way, right? I need a terminology for that, like Dustin's deep dive or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We'll workshop
this is ridiculous.
We'll workshop it.
For sure. We need to focus group some of this shit, actually. So okay. So basically what I heard, and again, stop me where I'm wrong, but what I heard was have 2 or 3 things that you're not willing to move off of that you need from a partner, and then maybe relax the fuck out on the little things.
Yeah.
Go bowling with Tony 2 or 3 more times, even though you might not like it all that much. See the chef who's not that great of a chef, and maybe he'll get better, right? But only if they are checking those 2 or 3 big boxes, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we get really, really, really stuck in the minutia, and we're like, but he doesn't have a 401k like I want. It's like, you know, what ends up happening is that all of the problems that are sort of like embedded in us, similar to what we were talking about earlier, of like those patterns of like how relationships in our families made us feel, tend to translate into how we navigate relationships as adults. And so I'll use myself as an example that, like, if I don't get really specific about those three things, what I'm going to end up finding myself doing is every new person that I meet, I'm going to find something that I don't really like that much, or I feel like doesn't make us a good match, because what I'm actually comfortable with is being alone. I like being alone. I like being in my own space. So that's fine. That's all well and good, but it's never going to help me find a partner that I really enjoy being around if every time I go out with someone, something comes up and I go, they thought it was weird that I like read tarot cards every day. Not a match. It's like, was that any part of my three values? No. I'm just turning myself off because it scares me.
Mm-hmm. No, that's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much good shit here. And I think, you know, I'm someone who is insanely comfortable being alone, right? I love it. It's fucking great.
Love it.
And everyone's
Love
like,
it.
oh, you don't want to wind up alone. It was this like narrative that got pushed and pushed. And don't you want to? And I'm like, no, I don't actually. Mom, I don't want kids. I don't, all of those things.
Right.
And I love, in the last couple of years, you know, pandemic and even a little bit before, I wasn't dating. I was just trying to focus on creative projects on myself.
Yep.
And like, I go to fucking restaurants alone. I'll go to the movies alone. All these things that people are apparently terrified to do. I love that shit. I fucking love it. But now I'm in a relationship and she respects that. She loves that. She's really great with her own space. So that works. But I just think that people, you know, you're right. They do go into it with the big things and the little things. And I think maybe they're like, oh, this little thing is bothering me. Maybe now they're going to come after the big things that or whatever. And it's like, these seem like fears that you're right. You're kind of, that part of you is always trying to talk yourself into, this isn't going to work or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I think it's awesome to strip it back to just letting the small ones go.
Yeah.
And maybe you guys don't like the same movies. Maybe you don't like the whatever. If that's not on your thing, right?
Yeah.
Hey, because I think we do want to talk ourselves out of it constantly.
Yeah.
And that's like something, I don't know where that's coming from. You probably would as a therapist more, but like, you know, why does the brain do that? Is it a safety thing? And also like sort of linked up with what you said, right? About the two or three things and letting the small ones go. How do we recognize that that's happening and then go back to saying like, okay, chill?
Yeah, that's a good question. It has to start from your own awareness. And like, I think even I love to do like self-talk. I love to process things by myself. So I do a lot of this on my own. Like I'll take time spent in the car and I'll just be like, what is it that I'm really looking for? Because what I'm doing isn't working. So I'll be kind of hard on myself, but in like a supportive way. But if that's not something you're comfortable with or in practice of doing, I'd find people, friends, other people in your life that you're comfortable with being like, what are you looking for in a relationship? Like, or what was important to you? Like, what's still important to you in your relationship? What are those three things? And then you get to have support and someone else gets to ask you that. And so getting really familiar with it to start is going to be helpful. And then checking in with yourself, like as you're dating. I think honestly, this is probably the most effective. If you go on a date with someone new and at first you're just like fucking jacked up. You're like, they are hot. They like me. I like this. They weren't rude to anyone while we were out. Like and something that I will do, I don't want to generalize to other women, but like a lot of us do it. We'll just be like, oh, and then we're going to start to date and then we're going to get married and then we're going to do the thing. You just go a mile a minute and you can get really wrapped up and really excited. So after the date, allow yourself to come down a little bit. Like, love that for you. You just had a really good night. Good for you. And then do I have any evidence so far to say that like this person is playful? This person seems like they can take care of themselves, their own place. Do I know any information yet about what they want long term? Do they want a family? Do they want to get married? It doesn't need to be a no if I don't know those things yet. But if I met someone that said off the bat, they're like, I know I don't want to have kids. I know I don't want to get married. I should probably take that information in and be like, wow, this kind of sucks because I really liked being around this person, but they don't want the same things that I want. This is always going to come back up. I don't want to wait around for 6 months to see if just being around me changes their mind. Mm-hmm. So you cut your losses and maybe you tell this person, not for me, you were great, would love to hang out otherwise. And you keep it moving. If you don't have that information yet, keep seeing them unless they are just absolutely jackasses and you just like can't tolerate it.
Right.
Don't go there. Don't go there.
Yeah. There is a couple things that I talk about on the show a lot. And again, I'm going to hit it again because it's just, I can't avoid these things. So if you're sick of me, I almost sound like bitter at this point, right? But it's something that I think is incredibly fascinating. And I have to get your opinion on it while you're here. And that is, we talked about it a little bit, right? It's this idea that we do have today more tools, knowledge. The internet is a wonderful thing most of the time. But we have all these dating apps, right? And they're designed to help us find better partners, people that are more of a match, right? We're literally swiping it. And back in the day, you didn't have any of that. And it was all friends of friends and and all the things. And now we have these things that are designed to help us, right? And yet we really don't use them for that way. We use them to meet the person, and then usually, and not everyone, but I just think that we use them to meet the person, go on the date, and then ignore the red flags or the things that are not maybe they're opposed to the three things we want. And we think, oh, well, we'll change this person. They'll get to know us. They'll love us, all those things. Right. Do you see that happening a lot? Okay.
Oh yeah. In the same way that I might tend to rationalize my way out of continuing to date someone for my own comfort, which is to like chill by myself. I think that other people will also lean towards ignoring red flags to continue to find themselves in the company of other people for the sake of like making that relationship work or feeling that validation that comes from having someone choose you. And so we'll just be like, oh, it's fine. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Like, it's okay that I've done this. It's okay that they don't want to get married. Or they don't want to have kids. Like, that's fine. Like they just have to hang out with me like a couple more times. No big deal. And so we do it a lot. And I want to believe that it comes from a place of like, just generally like believing in the best in people and feeling like, they're a good person. I think that there could be something here. Maybe I'm just not allowing myself to see it. But if you've already gotten some evidence that like they don't meet those things that you care about, it's not them. It's not you. It's just like not the match that you're looking for your life.
Then why is it so hard for people to disconnect from that, right? It's the emotion, I would think. Like they get emotionally, they don't want to let someone go. Maybe they won't find someone else. And yet their phone is there with all of these potential people waiting. Yeah. And so basically my roundabout like fucking point here is that even though we have systems and apps and paid services to help us connect with more people, we are still leading with that hopeless romanticism, rom-com. We're both going to reach for the same vodka soda that's not even ours, and then it's going to be this. We're going to catch each other's eyes and all of that thing. Like, do you see that still driving romance and dating? That we're wrapped around this idea that it's going to be like the movies we saw growing up.
Yeah,
And so that keeps us from finding a good partner.
Yeah, I think it's validation. I think it has something to do with like how we attach to one another, and it feels good to be in the company of others. It feels good to feel like you're dating someone that's choosing you. I think also, if like you mentioned media, if you think about like friends with benefits and you notice people who are two hot characters that like start out in their movie in the plot of it all hating each other and wanting nothing to do with each other, and then they slowly like grow into the most compatible relationship that could have ever been depicted in this movie. We look at that and we're like, that's it, like I'm supposed to feel that way. I'm supposed to hate their guts until I realized that they were just sitting under my nose. Like we want to feel chosen, and that's normal. Like that part of us is it's so okay. It's just, I think you just got to be kind to yourself while you have those conversations to be like, is what I'm experiencing, is it helping me get closer to what I want out of life? And I think that the same could go if you were like asking yourself the same thing about your professional goals. If you have a really, really high level professional goal, but you keep taking these shitty jobs that have nothing to do with it, you're not going to just get there overnight for no reason and just be discovered by someone. Like same thing goes for relationships. My perfect partner isn't going to just show up at my doorstep. I have to work for it. I have to make hard decisions to find it. And maybe those are decisions that are different than what I had done when I was younger, where I was just like going out partying, like asking people what the fuck they were drinking, and then just like landing on whatever I thought felt good at the moment. Like I have to be a little bit more strategic at this time of my life.
No, that's huge. And that's something I think everyone should be more strategic at this time in their lives, wherever this conversation finds them, because, it's fun to like have those ideas and whatever, about finding a partner, and they're going to just fall out of the sky, or you bump into them on the street. You're right. We do all want to be chosen because it's this important thing and it feels really good. Someone chose us, kind of a thing. But I think, what's really crazy, mind-boggling to me is you just said, like, be more strategic, basically, and then yet we have the tools and the apps that actually do all the work for us, kind of, right? They're still trying to sell us fucking whitening strips and Viagra, but whatever, like we'll let that slide. And yet we're not using them for that. We're still hoping that it's going to be the movie, and I think. Do you think that that's because of like education, right? Like the only thing educating us on sex and romance and intimacy are these rom-coms from the 80s and 90s, and that's the problem?
It's definitely part of the problem. And even like dating apps, like, yes, it gives us the tools, but still, like, we have to keep in mind that these are apps that really want our continued engagement. They say that they want us to like meet each other and fall in love, and maybe there's someone on their team that wants that, but they also they continue to succeed for however long and however many people use them. So they like, even dating apps are not good educators of how to like actually find success in like your love life or happiness in your love life. Movies are historically not a good well of resource. Also, I'll be honest, like each other, like our friends and family, not very good, not super reliable sources, because everyone's just kind of fucked up. And then I think the same goes obviously for school. Like, I don't know what your sex education was like growing up, but mine was like, it was there, but it was very straight and it was very basic, basic mechanics. And I think like I come away from that and I'm supposed to know everything, and I'm supposed to like start dating people in high school and college and like be this expert as a partner, as a girlfriend, and also in my sex life. And I feel none of those things because my friends are just as dumb as I am. My school only taught me like how to get pregnant and how to get like a disease. And my parents have been together since they were 15 and don't know a fucking thing about modern dating. And my mom's like, show up at a coffee shop. What? People are
Yeah.
going to leave me alone. They're going to assume I want to be left alone, and I want to be left alone. So, like,
Yeah.
not good. Not good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on which coffee shop you're going to, but yeah, I mean, if they serve alcohol, maybe there's a chance that someone's
A
gonna
little bit
be
better.
drunken and can I sit here and eat my scone? Kind of a
Yeah.
fucking place, right?
Yeah.
But you're right. The education piece, it fucking sucks, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't have
Don't have it.
any resources that are real. I don't think anyone, I mean, there's people who have written great books and have great blogs and are experts and doing all the things, but I think just in the mainstream, it's just not there anymore, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or it never was. I think those sources have always been kind of like not trustworthy. And then, you know, the same goes with sex, right? Like, do you think a relationship, like how much of a relationship relies, you know, and I guess your basic relationship, right? Like how much of it relies on like good intimacy, good sex, like how big of a piece of that is responsible for a good relationship?
I think intimacy is paramount.
Mm-hmm.
Intimacy you can access intimacy even without sex. As far as how much does like sex need to factor into how you feel in your relationship, that totally depends on how important is sex to you as the individual. If we're talking about, we're assuming that sex is important, then yeah, like facilitating intimacy, using relationship check-ins to figure out how to get there is absolutely like it's going to help the other parts of your relationship that are not sexual come together a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and you know what, maybe there are some couples that really like to just be individuals and really just know that they have each other for big life decisions, and they even keep a lot of their own spaces independent. That's wonderful if that works for them. But for others that don't necessarily see that as their vision, and they want to cohabitate and they want to like do life together in this very conjoined sort of enmeshed way, you sort of, you would benefit, I don't want to say need, but you would benefit from finding intimacy within your relationship that can be through sex. If it's not happening through sex, find it outside. If you want it to be happening through sex, you need to start asking yourselves and each other, what kind of ideal sex life do you want to be having? Are we having it? Probably not. Do we know what we're looking for? Can we think about how to get there?
Yeah, because again, I think it goes back to this education part, right? Like if we're only educated from like shitty fucking, you know, teachers who make less than minimum wage now and rom-coms for like, and our parents who are like awkward as shit about it. I was lucky. I had parents that were great. They did a great job of like, you know, not being weird about sex. It's natural.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing. But you know, I have found out in my life that, you know, no one was that lucky. I feel like, right? Not many people. So there is lack of education with sex, and if someone is trying to communicate, they want more, or they want less, or they want some weirder shit. Let's bring the pirate costumes back out, right? All of this stuff. Like they don't know how to ask for it. They don't know how to communicate. But also, like if the relationship is faltering, I mean, what are your thoughts on sex sort of helping some people turn to that because they feel like, oh, we're connecting and we're having all this sex. I mean, can sex save a relationship if there's no education there?
Oh my God. Yeah. Should it be like expected to be the thing that saves your relationship? No. Should it be the thing that we turn to, that we make better to ignore all of the other stuff? No. But if we're talking about feeling like the goal of feeling closer to each other in our partnership, you don't have to have a good education to start. And I think like we're all going to be better served if we stop pretending that that's like the norm. I think in this country, in America, we have a lot less of the examples that you just gave about how you grew up, right? It's much more common in other countries. But in this one, we are prudish and we don't like to talk about it within our family system. So I think if we can come into these relationships with the understanding that none of us are really properly educated on like what we want, how to get it in our partnership, especially long-term partnerships, then we can both feel like we're starting at the same place, which is, I don't know what I'm doing either. You don't know what you're doing. Let's like figure it out together. And then I think like if we both have that like humility where we're like, we're both still learning, that welcomes curiosity into the spaces when you engage in sex. And if you can bring curiosity into your sex life, you will find yourself exploring and discovering a much wider range of what can give you pleasure, what can give your partner pleasure that you were not going to get from any other common resource around you.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. And I think the curiosity piece is, I mean, you're so
Huge.
right. Yeah, it's so right.
Huge.
But I think, so how, well, two things. One, how does someone take a step, right? Like, can you give us some advice? Like, because I think as a woman, right, it feels weird to ask your partner, or maybe it doesn't. I'm not a woman, so you comment on this wherever you want, right? But like asking your partner to do certain things, like he never goes down on me. She'll tell her friends about that. She won't say anything to him. As a man, you know, there's a ton of shit that we fucking feel weird, or well, like I feel weird asking or whatever, and like things I've had to work through. So I feel like, how do you get past like the, ooh, that feels like weird or demanding or shitty or whatever your word
like
you want to insert there.
transactional,
Yeah, like I don't want to be a dick, but I really like want a better blowjob, or I don't want to be a dick, like but I really need him to like use his whole mouth when he's down in near my pussy, like, or whatever. Like how do we have these conversations? Not like right off the bat, like, yeah, and it's all descriptive and whatever, but how do we take that first step at making it less fucking weird? Does that make sense?
100%. I think like this could be a time when you bring in a pirate costume, like it very well could be. But I think if like the reason why I bring up and really believe in the relationship check-ins is because if you can make that a part of your everyday, or sorry, not every day, if you could make that a part of your every month routine with your partner, you're already in the habit of like coming together and talking about some real shit. So it's so easy to transition that into what kind of sex life do we want to have? You know, when in doubt, like you want these conversations to trend positively. So I would say for people to not focus on all of the ways in which you give me a shitty blowjob and how I need you to do better. And all of the ways in which, like, I know that you thought that you were making me climax, but like never once, not ever have you ever done it. And I like feel really sorry for you for not getting it. Like we have to keep in mind that we are all a little sensitive about this stuff because we want to be good at it. And some of us are fucking great at it, but we want to be perceived as good at it. So I think coming together in a way that just feels like, listen, you want like an awesome sex life, right? I want an awesome sex life. Our sex life is good. But I also wonder if we were being totally honest with each other, if someone asked us or we asked each other if we were having our ideal sex life, can we both agree that we wouldn't say that we already are living that? Like, can we just get rid of the bullshit? Like, no ego aside. I'm not keeping score here. I want to know how to make this better for you. I also want this to be better for me. And I truly believe that you and I can get there. Like, I believe in our thing, but I just think that we can like, let's have fun. Let's explore more. Or like, maybe there's stuff that you've never told me that I've never heard before. So trending positive. I really like when you do this. I just really want to see it more.
Yeah.
I think even I don't want to recommend that people lie, but if there's a specific kind of like blowjob experience, regardless of who you are, that like you haven't had with this partner, but you know that you want, you just tell them like, I really like it when you, and like see if they're able to pick it up. And if they're like, I don't remember doing that, and you'd be like, okay, well, let me tell you what I like, you know. Just find yourself there.
I mean, a little white lie, right? Oh, when you did that thing, it felt so good. Like, what thing? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Like that. No, I love that idea.
That's so crazy. You don't remember. It blew my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's, that's so great. I thought you were going to say like, find an example and show them. And I'm like, oh, that would be interesting too. Like, you know, see how he's, the mouth is near the clit. He's using his tongue. Like, so, I mean, that's an option, right? But then that sort of opens the door to also, I mean, I think you should probably be in the pirate costume if you do that.
Be in the pirate costume. I think it's a really good idea. And I think if you and your partner are in a place where you're like, yeah, let's like, I don't actually know what you're talking about. Let's like look at it.
Yeah.
Is a great place to be like, let's use the resources that the online web has to offer us. But if it could also make someone feel like they're being, taught in a way that makes them feel like, oh, you clearly know so much more. And that makes me feel like I've got so much room to catch up. And that doesn't feel good. I think true to what I was saying a little bit before, like, let's see if we can remove our egos aside for a moment and see if we can feel like we're coming from the same level of like, we both want to learn more about each other. We both want to learn more about ourselves, about what works for us. And like, it could be really fun to help each other explore that. When you actually get to like the bedroom and you're done with all of this fucking talking, which can definitely be too much. Starting with like just really slow, gradual, like touching in certain areas that are not the obvious erogenous zones, and just making it slow and checking in, being like, do you like this? How do you feel? Like, is this good? Like, create code words, like throw in a pirate costume if you want. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, whatever's going to make this feel like the two of you are on that same side of the journey together is going to help leave the things that make us really self-conscious kept out of the room.
Yeah. So essentially you're educating each other.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Brianna Dachisen, thank you so much for being on Sex Party. Where can people find you? Where can people work with you? Where can people support the podcast?
Thank you so much. It's been really fun to be here. So thank you for having me.
Of course. Yeah.
So you can support the podcast at Ditch the Script Pod on all of our social medias, Instagram and TikTok. You can go to our website and talk to both Alex and myself. Ask us a question. We can answer it online. We also offer free 30-minute video call sessions that, with your permission, we would air on the show as well. You would want to go to our website, www.ditchthescriptpod.com. And if you want to follow me on social media, my handle is at BDACH, BDACH. I have a very long wait list right now, which is good and also sad. Just everyone needs so much help, and I wish I could help everyone. I'm currently licensed in Massachusetts, so if you're curious about working with me, I would just do a quick Google of my name. You'll find my Psychology Today profile. It'll give you all of the information on who I serve and how to reach me.
Amazing. And as always, everything will be linked in the show notes on the audio side and YouTube. So you guys will be easily finding those things. Thank you so much. I would love to have you back on the show. We'll figure that out. Yeah, no, but thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Huge thank you to my guest, Brianna Dachisen, for being on the show with me this week. I mean, great hacks, right? You guys can use those today, right now. They're yours. Thanks, Brianna. If you guys are appreciating guests like Brianna, if you're appreciating Sex Party, if you're excited, we're now into the 50s. If you want more, if you, I don't know, maybe you want a spinoff. Maybe you want a Sex Party cinematic universe. If you want these things, you could show some appreciation for the show. You don't have to do it. I would love it if you did. It'll allow me to grow this thing into a monstrosity. We talk about this every week, but if you're listening on platforms like Apple and Spotify, you can subscribe to the show. That's the most important. You can leave a rating. You can leave a review. If you're watching on YouTube, I love you. Thanks for the support. You can like the video. You can subscribe to the channel. You can leave a comment. You can share all this crazy shit with your friends. You can recommend to strangers on the street. As always, you can reach out to me in the DMs on Instagram, and I will see you back here next week.
Thanks for listening. The party continues next week. Click subscribe and let's make this a regular thing. Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter @SexPartyFM. Follow Dustin @Dustin Rybka.